Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Hope y'all doing okay today. So, I kind of wanted to give my full opinion on EVs. I realize there's a huge push by the government to make the switch to EVs right now. I do think that a great number of people could get away with transitioning to EVs, especially those that live in urban areas. Now, I don't think that every vehicle should be an EV. And I don't think that even if, say, you could buy a compact electric car, say comparable to what I'm driving right here, a little Ford Focus 2018, that was priced similarly to what you could buy an internal combustion engine vehicle for, that even then I don't think it's going to work for everybody. This little Focus can get over 400 miles on a tank of fuel. Now, I will admit the amount of times that I've used a full tank of fuel and got over 400 miles on a tank in a sitting are very limited. But I'll run 600 miles in a week. And a lot of people don't have the charging capabilities at their house, either due to the house not being up to the par or the electrical grid in their area being able to withstand the high load of an EV. I actually watched a article talking about that, or read an article talking about that, and one of the electrical grid as a whole nationwide could probably handle everybody driving EVs. Electricity production would have to go up somewhere around 35 to 40%, if I'm remembering correctly. Now that said, there's sections of the grid in more urban areas or suburban areas that could not keep up with charging. So, okay, suppose you had a car, went through all the charging upgrades on your house, and were ready to live EV life, as were all your neighbors. You've got a smaller EV battery size, say 100, 130 miles, 200 miles, and you run over half of it out. You plug in, fully expecting, and reasonably so, that your car will be charged up by the morning. All your neighbors do the same. The grid can't cope with that kind of load, so it effectively does a brownout where electrical capacity is less than electrical demand, and your car doesn't charge up as far or as fast as it should, and neither does your neighbors. Now, some people might only need to charge, the average work commute is under 30 miles a day, so I get that, these are, so it might brown out for a little bit until vehicles start getting full, and then they're gonna click off one by one, and the guys that ran all the battery out are gonna start getting their charge. So I understand that, but it is still a concern. Also, will that cause breakers to trip at the transformers? I don't know. Another thing about EVs is road trips. Definitely less than ideal for attempting to get somewhere in a hurry. And when I say in a hurry, I'm not talking, cannonball runs, but rewind to this summer. My family and I went to Savannah, Georgia / Tybee Island. We had all the kids with us. My mom and sister they went along with us in a separate vehicle. They left earlier in the day. Just reasons. Easiest way to explain it. And they're on their way down there. And they were several hours in front of us by the time it was all said and done. I think they ended up being about 3 hours ahead of us. I made, according to Google Maps, if you had a vehicle that was capable of filling up, driving straight there and stopping with no food, restroom, or anything stops, it would have taken about 8.5 to 9 hours. Once we got on the road, we did it in 10, including fuel and everything stops, because we'd run into the gas station, go to the bathroom, get gas, load up on a few snacks, hit the road. And so we made it from central Kentucky, about as central as it gets, all the way to Savannah, Georgia, in 10 hours dead. EV, that would not be possible. I don't even know on that route that we took, I don't know if there's charging infrastructure along it for non-Teslas. I know that Tesla has some charging infrastructure along the way because I looked it up out of curiosity's sake. And it would add about an hour and a half to get to Atlanta, and Savannah's about 3 hours beyond that. So, yeah, it would add some time. Now, I get that you can, step out and sit down and get you a nice meal and all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine. I can do that with a gas car too if I wanted to, but we wanted to hurry up and get down there because we had a limited amount of time that we were going to be spending there, and I wanted to spend as much of it on the beach as possible. Another thing that I think is going to help offset the environmental need for EV cars, which I've done a lot of reading on this topic, and I've heard a lot of people say that a lot of scientists do think that EVs are cleaner, that you do, like the manufacturing costs to the environment, you do lose quite a bit, but it pays for itself over time. Even on overall CO2 emissions, it pays for itself in the long run, even if you're using coal-generated electricity. I've heard some people say they never will. I don't know. But I can tell you something interesting. Porsche actually came up with something called synthetic fuel. It uses carbon capture technology to capture loose carbon in the atmosphere and turn it into useful gasoline. They did some testing on a 911 Turbo with some of this stuff, and as far as I remember and as far as I'm aware, it performed exactly the same as with petroleum products. And the thing that's so neat about that is, yes, the car had tailpipe emissions, but the fuel, since it was made from carbon that was already in the atmosphere, made it a net zero emission vehicle, just due to the fact that you didn't have tailpipe emissions that were new. It was second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand tailpipe emissions because another vehicle had burned that gas up originally. They had extracted the carbon from the air and made it. Now, I don't know if it's a carbon neutral process. I don't know if it's an efficient process. They're working on taking it to scale, but I think it's interesting technology. And the thing that's so cool about it is if they can do it at a zero, if they can make that fuel at a zero carbon emission, where they can do it on wind or solar or some form of energy, or it's just so efficient that the net carbon emissions is very small. The thing that I find so interesting about that is you wouldn't need to go to EVs at a large scale at all, because you would have a ton of vehicles running around effectively emitting net zero tailpipe emissions and burning gas. I think that would be a great solution if it pans out where you can do it efficiently. I will say that I'm not down on EVs. Several months ago, I put up a video about me riding in a buddy's Nissan Leaf. It's a Gen 1.5, I think. He has a shorter drive to work than I do. The car has like 80 miles of range. And we went for a spin in it, and it's interesting. I didn't like the limited range. I could barely get to work. And if there was no charger station, I'd be screwed. But I'm not opposed to the idea of looking at an electric vehicle if it makes dollars and cents. And what I mean by that is, I've said this before, when I bought this little Focus that I'm in, I did all the math on it and knew what the running costs would be and what the fuel costs would be and what the insurance would cost, and on and on and on. I knew it all. Okay, fine. If an EV with the extra price, the cost of putting electric of that grade in the house and all that stuff, plus the monthly payment and the electric cost and the insurance cost, if an EV was legitimate, was cheap to run or comparable to run to what I'm looking at, I'd consider it. I really would. So I'm not anti-EV at all, and I think that it's very interesting technology. It's definitely very efficient. I do think that the better answer to tailpipe emissions would be a lot of big battery hybrids, plug-in hybrids and stuff. I know people don't use them the way they're supposed to, but I think that's the best answer in the short term. You can get 30 to 100 miles worth of pure electric range, and then if you need it, your engine kicks on and it drives like a regular hybrid. I think that's the better answer. I think personally what will end up happening long term with EVs is that enough people will get them, there will be the issues that are unanticipated, and even issues that I haven't mentioned, and there will be a great rethink on it as EV popularity becomes a thing. That's my opinion. What's yours? I want to know. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Catch y'all next time.